Hello and welcome to Coronacrisis. My name's David Haythornthwaite and I'm the chairman of AFC Fylde, and over the next few weeks and months I'm hopefully going to take you through what goes on behind the scenes of a non-league football team at times like this. We're going to discuss all the issues regarding behind the scenes, the players, off-field staff, all the things that contribute to the running of the club, and how we're dealing with the issues that are being thrown at us on a daily and weekly basis, so that it gives you a really good insight to the club and the running of clubs in general. So I look forward to you joining me on this journey.
Okay, David, thanks once again for joining us. We look behind the scenes at AFC Fylde during this period. We'll continue with our discussions on the league, and we'd like to talk about your views on the league, who is making the decisions. We know you've got views on that. Yeah,
again, Adam, that was part of the letter that I wrote to Michael Tattersall, and what I'm very concerned about, and I would emphasise very concerned about, is the fact that there is clear conflicts of interest on the current board of directors. Just to, again, it's I suppose interesting for people who don't know, but the league every year publish a handbook, a very detailed handbook, which, apart from giving details on, for club secretaries and things, all the details of the different clubs in our league, the National League and the North and South. Also, we have a list of who the board of directors are for this particular year. They're called league officials. So everything's in there, and then we have what you'd normally have, I suppose, in a handbook, which is your articles of association, section 6, articles of association. And then that's followed on by all the league rules. Those are all the things that relate to things such as fielding of substitutes and transfers and loan rules and all the detail that's really, really important in running a football club. And those of you who watch football a long time will know that over the years there's some people who've fallen foul of these, when they've played an illegible player in an FA Cup game and it's been null and voided. So you have to be really on it, and your secretary has to be on it. So, but anyway, there's clear rules and as clear as our articles of association. And the point that I've made in there's 16 members. I'm not sure it's 16 or 17 board members, and that board is made up of some appointed people who are paid executives. Obviously the chief exec, Brian Barwell's chairman, he gets paid, and then there's some non-exec directors on there, past presidents, all walks of life. In actual fact, just as an interesting sort of trivia point, I found out a few weeks ago that one of the people on there is a guy called Colin Peake, who's an ex-copper. And Colin's claim to fame is that he arrested Fred West, if you remember the famous Fred West. So a little bit of trivia there, but it's made up of different kind of people from different walks of life, mainly obviously have a love for football. And then there are 8 members that are elected to represent their clubs. I told you about Sid Blaine, so Sid's one of those. You've got 8 in total, and when I go through that list, there's 4 of them that have clear conflicts of interest. So you've got Sid on there from, and I always get this guy's name wrong, which is why I'm looking now. You've got Sid Blaine on there from Barrow. You've got Shahid Azim from Aldershot Town, who I know pretty well. You've got Anthony, and I hope I don't do his name any disgrace here, Cleanthouse, who's the Barnet owner. You've got Jim Parminter from Dover. You've got Richard Parsons from Hampton and Richmond, Gary Plant from Harrogate, and Steve Thompson, lovely guy, from Dagenham and Redbridge. So 8 people from representing football clubs. Now, of those, Gary Plant from Harrogate Town has a clear vested interest, and in actual fact has, in my opinion, stepped way beyond out of the remit of his job by publicly saying, for example, that there'll never ever be null and void as an option. So, I've asked 3 or 4 weeks ago that he should be stood down. He hasn't been. He's still a member of the committee, and I feel very strongly about that. That should be someone who's sitting in his position of power at this delicate time, should not be going in the public domain and making statements like that. So he's got a clear vested interest, and he stated that. Richard Parsons, Hampton and Richmond, has a clear vested interest. They sit second in the league behind Eastbourne Borough. So he's got a clear vested interest. They want to get promoted, don't they, to our league. You've got Anthony, who I've just talked about, who owns Barnet. Clear interest. If you go on points per game, Barnet would leapfrog Stockport into that playoff position. Clear conflict of interest. And you've got Sid Blaine, who's representing Barrow. Clear conflict of interest. So I think it's really important that people are aware of that. And when they are having meetings to decide our future, then they should, in my view, not be at those meetings. Because that's all we're discussing at those meetings. These discussions aren't about, player fines or some club ground grading. We're discussing that. We're talking about really big issues now. And all those big issues, I don't see in the main, can't be discussed with those 4 people there. So let's see, and this is where it's important, I think, to go to what the rules say. And the rules say quite clearly, it's rule 23, it's in the Articles of Association, votes of board members with an interest in the proceedings. And I'll read exactly what it says. So it says, save as otherwise provided by these articles, a board member shall not vote at a meeting of the Board of Directors on any resolution concerning a matter in which he or any club which he is involved has directly or indirectly an interest, or which is material and which conflicts or may conflict with the interests of the company, unless his interests are duly aroused only because the cause face one of the more following paragraphs. So it's all about retirement benefits and things like that. So it's clear from that rule, and that rule was put in the Articles of Association for a reason, wasn't it? It's exactly the same. I've been to many planning meetings over the years, when I've been trying to develop things down, and we've had a lot of trouble with, as you know, with our own ground about planning. And in council meetings decided a long time ago that if you have what's called a vested interest, then you're not allowed to be part of the debate, and certainly not allowed to have a vote. And you have to declare that. It's an honesty rule. So somebody might say, well, actual fact, it's my brother who's putting that application in for that housing. So I need to declare that and leave the room. Yeah. Good old fashioned, I suppose, British honesty. Well, we don't need to do that here because it's clearly written. It's clearly written. And those 4 people clearly have a vested interest. So let's take the viewers to I'll give you 2 examples of why they can't be involved. So the first example is the obvious one, and that is what we should be doing. So first of all, they're trying to get playoffs. Does Barnet chairman want playoffs? Does Hampton chairman want playoffs? Does Sid Blaine want playoffs? Well, he probably wants, probably be in favour of playoffs. And does the Who was the other one on there? Sorry, now I've lost it now. Who was the other one on there? But there was 4 people who were obviously involved in potentially benefiting from from having playoffs. Let me just get that. I'm sorry, guys. So there was Sid, there was Richard, and Anthony, and Gary Plant. Harrogate in second place. So do those players want playoffs? Of course they do. So they're the 4 that are influencing everybody else, like I talked about in my earlier interview today, about pushing the playoff agenda, as opposed to taking the democratic view of all the chairmen. So they're pushing that agenda. We then come to what options should be given to us, which I discussed in my interview last week, and where I stand on that. And I still think that there should be a null and void option. There should be a promotion, no relegation, and there should be a promotion and a limited relegation. And I laid those out. I'm not going to go back through those. And those are, I feel, 3 fair options. I also, if you remember, said it in one of those options, which was 2 up, 2 down, based on a points per game, we would get relegated. But those need to be put to all the chairmen. Now, those 4, not any of those 4, would not vote for null and void. But it's got to be an option. If it was null and void for steps 3 to 7, if null and void's good enough for the Women's Premier League, then we should have that option and we should be allowed to vote on it. Now, if everyone feels strongly that's the wrong option, then they can vote, can't they? But they should be allowed to have that vote. There's no way, and as Gary Plant has gone out in the public domain and said, no, it's over my dead body. He can't make that decision. Yeah, he can't make that decision. So there's a clear conflict of interest. The other one where there's a conflict of interest, and I'm going to come to that a little bit later, and I'll rather than cover it now, I'll cover it later on, is when we come critically to start the season. So I want to talk a lot about that, but why is there a conflict of interest? Well, the Football League aren't daft, the EFL aren't daft, and as you know, they voted, League 2 had their own vote, and one of the things, kind of controversially, they voted was no relegation for Stevenage, and that vote was, shall we say, overturned at a full meeting of the EFL, where Rick Perry came out last week, didn't he, and said, no, we're going to have a full relegation and promotion. And kind of at that time, all the people in the National League, the Harrogates and Notts County, got all excited and go, oh, great, we're going to have normal promotion and relegation. But they're not stupid. And they said there will be relegation for Stevenage, but they added a massive, massive caveat. And that massive caveat was, as long as there's a league for them to play in. Now, what they mean by that is that football resumes on August the 7th or whatever it is, first, second Saturday, as normal, if there's a league for them to go in. Very clever, very clever. Because there is no way, in my view, that non-league can start without crowds. And I've made this point, many a time. We cannot possibly start, and I'll explain why, without crowds in our league. So this therefore puts those 4 people I've talked about in a difficult position, doesn't it? Because they are going to want to start this league without crowds. Why? Because if they don't do that, Stevenage won't get relegated. And then if League 1 decide that they're not going to replace Bury, which they could do, they could decide we're going to go a season without replacing Bury, so let's close ranks. That would mean there'd be no relegation at all from the Football League, and Barrow and Harrogate miss out. Let me be very clear. I said all along, I don't want Barrow or Harrogate, if they're the 2, to miss out. But I want it to be done in a fair and equitable and democratic fashion, decided by the club owners, not by people who have a vested interest. And that's their problem. So all these are key issues that are being decided and discussed by people of a huge vested interest. And I'm not sure that particular rule in the Article of Association is being adhered to and followed. And I'm going to take that issue further because I do think it's important that we know what's going on, especially when they're, I say, dealing with things that affect us, very, very importantly.
Okay, thank you.